Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Gita class again. We are on 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled as Dhyana Yoga. So as I said last time, the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita talks about the whole process of Ashtang Yoga, and it talks about how the process of Ashtang Yoga, it's not easy at all. It's not practical to follow in this age of Kali. And then I was telling that after discussing the whole of Ashtanga Yoga throughout the 6th chapter, Krishna concludes the 6th chapter by a verse that talks about what is the easy way. And therefore this whole chapter is acronymed as easy. So the last time we discussed about the first concept, which is how the mind is the friend or the enemy depending on how you deal with it. Today we're going to discuss a little bit details about what the process of Ashtanga Yoga is and how complicated it is. So if you want to really know what really is the process of Ashtanga Yoga, you can pay attention today. And after we discuss the whole process of Ashtanga Yoga, what are the expectations of a yogi, then you can tell me, what is your opinion about it, whether you are fit for it, you are meant for it, you are destined for it, whatever. So last time we discussed about these 8 limbs of what yoga is: Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi. So to practice this, what is known as Ashtanga Yoga, there are certain conditions that Krishna prescribes for a Ashtanga yogi to have in his life so that he can practice the process of yoga effectively. The first condition is known as accepting favorable and unfavorable conditions and rejecting the unfavorable. So in the scriptures there are two words. This one verse essentially which says Anukulyasya sankalpa Pratikulyasya vivarjanam. These are two essential instructions that every yogi has to follow in his life. Anukulyasya sankalpa means whatever is anukul, whatever is favorable, accept it. And whatever is pratikul, that means whatever is unfavorable, you should reject it. That means if we want to do things, if we want to get any success in the process of yoga, we need to know which things to do and which not to do. And therefore, in every aspect of life, there are do's and don'ts. You should know exactly what to do and what not to do. And yam niyam essentially is only that. So here in the process of Ashtang Yoga, everything that we do, our health, diet, exercise, rest, everything helps us achieve what is the end result, which is known as a peaceful mind. Because to be able to practice yoga, even to be able to practice the process of Krishna consciousness, there has to be a peaceful mind. So therefore, all the regulations of Ashtanga Yoga are meant to get you a peaceful mind. That's it. So here are the list of things that you need to have, or rather you need to create to be able to be a good Ashtanga Yogi. The first condition for yoga is ekaki. The word ekaki means yoga has to be done alone. A group yoga का concept है ही नहीं. भैया ऐसा नहीं है कि if you go to Himalayas, you will not find many yogis sitting in circle, and doing yoga. Never. Yogi means alone. So that means essentially Ashtanga Yoga has to be practiced alone. You can't do it in association. This is the difference between Bhakti Yoga, the process of Sankirtan, and the process of Ashtanga Yoga. The process of Sankirtan means the more the merrier. If you have 1,000 people dancing and singing, more fun. If you have as many people as possible, it's more a more positive and merrier experience. That means the whole process of Sankirtan is sharing of minds. So my mind individually is weak. Your mind individually is weak. But when all weak minds come together, they create a very strong atmosphere, very strong vibration. And that atmosphere helps us practice spirituality with intensity. Otherwise, on our own, alone, it is very difficult to practice. So when we are alone, there are many problems. One of the first problems you face when you are alone is fear. Can you imagine? You're sitting alone in some place in the forest. आधा ध्यान जाएगा, कोई खटमल है क्या आवाजों में, मच्छर है क्या, शेर आ रहा है क्या. So half your energy is just dealing with your fear. And therefore, how can you practice yoga? More than that, all of us are accustomed to relationships, accustomed to social dealings. Can you imagine? One of the requirements for Ashtanga Yoga is you have to be alone. That means no mobile phone. Half the people will die. ये संभव नहीं है. आज के जमाने में मोबाइल फोन और व्हाट्सएप के बिना जीना नहीं है, ये हराम की जीना है कि नहीं? ऐसा लोगों को लगता है आजकल. People feel that living means relationship has to be there. Of course, I am not even talking about Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and so many other things. Basic need, WhatsApp. So essentially, look at our life. And if we attempt to practice Ashtanga Yoga, in 2 or 3 days we will give up. बहुत हो गया, अकेला जीना है कि नहीं? So the problem in Kali Yuga is that two problems. Kali essentially means two problems. One is quarrel, and second is hypocrisy. These are two problems of Kali Yuga. So when people in Kali Yuga come together, they start fighting. And when they sit alone, they become hypocritical. So essentially in Kali Yuga, whether you are alone or whether you are together, problem is there. So therefore, in such an atmosphere, to practice yoga alone, ekaki, very difficult. And therefore, what is culture? Culture essentially means what we are when we are alone. That is the meaning of culture. Who we are or what we are when we are alone. That shows us what our real culture is. In front of others, it is very easy to act. When you come to the temple, very easy to act like a very wonderful soul, very elevated soul. सबको लगेगा ये भगवत धाम जा ही रहे हैं, दरवाजे पे खड़े हैं बस, अंदर बाहर जाने की देरी है. So it's very easy to act when we are coming to a proper atmosphere that we are very elevated people. What about when we are alone, when nobody is watching us? And therefore, that shows what our real culture is. The fact is, all of us alone are weak. All of us alone are incapable of practicing any spiritual life. Absolutely not possible. And therefore, we need company. In company, when we have company, we become strong. Just like there were two ants. They were on the road. And suddenly these two ants saw an elephant coming on their direction, towards them. So both these ants knew if they stand over there, they will be dead in some time. So one ant told the other ant, चलो हम इसको मारते हैं, हम दो है वो अकेला है. Can you imagine what guts these people have? Just by the power of being together, they feel that कुछ strength आ गया है. That is what satsang essentially means. In Australia once, there were 20 devotees who were doing Harinam, singing and dancing on the streets of Australia. And naturally, when they were doing Harinam, they were taking intense shelter of Krishna's holy names. So eventually, at some point, the police came and arrested all 20 of them and put them in jail. So then, at that point of time, Srila Prabhupada was in Australia, and somebody went and told Srila Prabhupada that our devotees are arrested and they are in the jail. What to do? Should we bring them out on bail, pay the bail money? Prabhupada said, no, don't worry, let them be inside and let them chant inside also. So now these devotees, so Prabhupada said, let them take intense shelter of holy name inside the jail. So now these devotees, these 20 devotees, they started doing full-fledged Harinam inside the jail, And there were 2,000 inmates in the jail. All 2,000 started singing and dancing, and they were like fully participating in the Sankirtan. The police people said, these people are more dangerous inside than outside. बाहर ही भेज दो उनको. They released them. So essentially, the whole thing is, the concept of Ashtang Yoga is a concept of being alone. Ekaki. Akele maro. Koshish karo. That's what I mean. The process of Sankirtan is come together and try. In Kali Yuga, staying alone and doing anything is difficult. And therefore, the easy way out is come together and do something. So first requirement for Ashtanga Yoga is ekaki, it has to be performed alone. Then Krishna says, the next requirement, the second requirement for practicing Ashtanga Yoga is rahasi sthita. That means, rahasi sthita means you have to practice Ashtanga Yoga in a secluded place. That means you can't be practicing Ashtanga Yoga in the hustle bustle of the city. It's not possible to sit, be amidst thousands of people and practice Ashtanga Yoga. When we chant the holy names of Krishna, when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, for chanting there is no prerequisite. ऐसा नहीं बोला गया कि ऐसा एकदम अकेले में एक कोने में जाके बैठ के जप करो, ऐसा नहीं है. You can chant anywhere at any time of the day. There is no prerequisite as such. But for Ashtanga Yoga, there is a clear prerequisite. It has to be rahasi sthita, a secluded place. You can't go in Bombay. Where do you find a secluded place? First of all, you may find secluded place in other parts of India probably. If you go to Goa, probably you'll find some secluded places. But Bombay में किधर है secluded place? मरीन ड्राइव में वो पत्थर के पीछे भी जाएंगे, लोग मिल जाएंगे आपको. Absolutely no secluded place in Bombay. किधर अष्टांग योग करेंगे हम? So, in the first three steps of yoga, yama, niyama and asana, in these three steps, sound is not a problem. But after these 3 steps, you need absolute silence. That means if you want to go beyond the stage of asana, if you want to go beyond the stage of performing asanas, you have to have absolute silence to be able to focus. The mind just cannot focus when there is sound. The natural tendency of the mind is to focus on what you are easily connected to. Like for example, there were 2 friends who were walking on a road, and it was a very crowded and very, a lot of things happening on that road. One friend, he asked his other friend, can he hear the sound of crickets? The insects that make sound. In dark night you can clearly hear crickets. So his friend said, no, I can't hear any cricket sound. So he said, how can you hear so much noise over here? So this friend, he told him, I will show you. He took a coin and he threw it on the ground. As soon as he threw the coin on the ground, 10 people looked that side. Immediately everybody turned towards that coin. Because the mind tends to focus on what it prioritizes. And therefore, when there is sound, the mind naturally tends to go towards that sound that you connect with, that you prioritize, basically. So essentially, what is the meaning of Rahasi Sthita? Rahasi Sthita essentially means that this is a place which is secluded, and it is a place where there is freedom from distractions. So if you are trying to do yoga, you can't be doing yoga in a place where your family members keep coming, your friends keep coming, your neighbors keep coming, your milkman keeps coming. Kitna ghanti? How many bells will you answer? You keep answering bell, then what yoga will you do? Therefore, first thing that is required is secluded place. So, unfortunately, for us to have a secluded place, we need to be able to adjust with that secluded place also. For most people in this world, the ability to handle seclusion or the ability to handle noiselessness itself is difficult. Many people who come to Vada, who come to go to the Nico village, बोले यहाँ पे कुछ तो गड़बड़ है, आवाज नहीं है कार का, truck ka. So people are unstable when there is no sound. We are so conditioned to sound, So if there is absolute quietness, you feel something is wrong. So you need some noise, to feel that kuch to ho raha hai. I'm not alone. So people need that kind of thought process. And more than anything else, secluded place is one thing. Second thing is that one should have freedom from desire and possessiveness. So when we go to a secluded place, it's not that we go there thinking about what we have left behind. जैसे अभी यहाँ पे आप बैठे हो लेक्चर सुनने के लिए, but mind will be thinking मेरा कार का क्या चल रहा है ऊपर बाहर, पार्किंग बराबर है क्या, टो करके लेके जा रहा है क्या. If you keep thinking of all that, what will you focus over here? Nothing will enter. Can you imagine if you go to a Rahasi Sthita, if you go to a secluded place and you have parked your car somewhere and gone to a secluded place and constantly you are thinking, अरे गाड़ी क्या हो रहा है, कोई आ गया, चोर. So where is the possibility of your mind being stable? So therefore Krishna says the first condition is secluded place, and second condition is that you should have freedom from desire and possessiveness. So a person who is Krishna conscious, he understands that everything belongs to Krishna only. So at best I am like a caretaker. So a person who is Krishna conscious, even though he may be living with all the possessions, he may be having a phone, he may be having a car, he may be having all the possessions, he understands that these possessions are not mine. So the mode in which he practices Krishna consciousness is, it's not that he's running away from these possessions, he's utilizing these possessions, but what he is keeping away from is the attachment to these possessions. So generally, what is a secluded place? Secluded place, first of all, means a path of no return. That means once you go that direction, you don't come back. बस जाना है. In the traditional times, when people would go to Badrinath, Kedarnath, Muktinath, all these places, they would go once and for all. It's not a picnic. उधर जाके घूम के आते वापस. हम आजकल हेलीकॉप्टर भी है, उड़ के जाएंगे केदारनाथ, Badrinath, Gangotri, Yamunotri, and then back to Bombay. So, in the previous times, when people would think of going to a secluded place to perform yoga, they would not think of coming back. So, the very thought of coming back means you are not qualified only to practice Ashtanga yoga. The very thought of attachments and desires and possessions means you are not even qualified to practice Ashtanga yoga. Because उधर बैठ के वही सोचते रहेंगे. बेटे को जॉब मिला कि नहीं, बच्चा हुआ कि नहीं बेटे को, और बेटे का बच्चा बड़ा हो गया कि नहीं. उधर बैठ के अष्टांग योग करना है, सब छोड़ के जाना है. ऐसा नहीं कि उधर जाके सब सोचते रहो अंदर क्या चल रहा है. Unfortunately, coming to this concept of being free from me and mine and being free from possessiveness is a very, very difficult stage. This is the third need of Ashtanga yoga. ये आगे भी नहीं गया, ये third need है. तो उधर ही हमारा अटक गया सुई, है कि नहीं? There was one fellow who became very old. But this guy was so attached to his wealth, attached to his property, attached to his business. So the sons of this old man, they were fed up of the old man. Everywhere टांग अड़ा रहा है, everywhere घुसा रहा है. They're telling him, निकल जाओ यार, हम लोग संभाल लेंगे. फिर भी he's like, really poking his nose. So they got fed up of him, So they decided to call one sadhu and tell him, थोड़ा वैराग्य ज्ञान दो इसको. Teach him something about detachment. The sadhu said, don't worry, मैं हूं ना. So he started giving him full philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and about Vairagya and all that. This guy, absolutely no difference only. Nothing entering into his brain. So the sadhu said, we have to give him experiential learning. High dose dena padega. So he told his son, I'm taking your father somewhere. And he took him to Varanasi, to Manikarnika Ghat. And he made the father sit over there in front of a burning fire. Funeral fire for whole day. From morning to night, Manikarnika Ghat, constantly funerals happen. So this man kept sitting in front of the funeral fire and watching all day long. At the end of the day, this man started crying. Tears like anything, started crying like anything. The sadhu said, transformation ho gaya. So I know that Manikarnika Ghat cannot fail. After seeing so many dead bodies burning, whose heart will not melt? Who will not develop detachment? So he was very happy. And he said, tell me what your realization is. This old man said, my realization is I made the biggest mistake of my life. So sadhu became very happy. I wasted my life, he said. So sadhu was really happy. Complete detachment, ho gaya lagta hai. So he said, if I had come here before, in the beginning of my career, I would have not done cloth business, I would have done wood business. बहुत डिमांड है wood का, देखो इतना जल रहा है. So this guy was going crazy, thinking he started the wrong business all his life. Money, ये देखो प्रभु जी का और एक इंटरप्रिटेशन है. मणि करने के घाट में हो, मणि बनाने के लिए गए हो. So essentially, where is the possibility of practicing Ashtanga yoga? There is so much attachment to possessions. The next need for practicing Ashtanga yoga is Suchau Deshe. Suchau Deshe means that the place where you go, it should not just be secluded, but it should also be a clean place. Today, if you go into a cave also, udhar bhi plastic ka container milega aapko. If you go inside the ground also, you will find dirty things. Where is a clean place in today's society, in today's time and age? So many people think that if I want to go to a clean place, sanctified place, might as well go to a holy place. go to a holy place, Vrindavan jao. Holy place is a busy place now. And therefore there is no question of seclusion. Secluded forest is not holy. Holy place is busy. So now if you want to go to holy place thinking that it is sanctified, it is pure place, no seclusion there. And if you go to a secluded place thinking that it is quiet, it's not pure, it's dirty over there. And therefore, how do you do Ashtanga Yoga? Every place that you go to has an atmosphere connected with that place. So the atmosphere of that place affects your spiritual practice, affects your sadhana. And therefore in the previous times, the yogis would choose a place where the atmosphere is very vibrant. The atmosphere is very powerful. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita begins with Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. So that means, why was Dharma Kshetra Kurukshetra chosen as a war field? Because that place is a pious place, that is a place where many yogis have done tapasya. And therefore the vibrations of that place, the purity of that place will affect the consciousness of people fighting. So they will fight a war of dharma essentially. And therefore, not just places, but even people are like antennas. They transmit vibrations, they transmit very powerful vibes. Today, if you go to holy places, all the holy places practically are full of tourists, full of Westerners, weirdly dressed Indians, and most people go to do all crazy things. I go to Rishikesh every year, for arranging programs for Radhanath Maharaj, and that's supposed to be the most holy place, and that's the place where you're supposed to find the most holy people. Today, if you go to Rishikesh, you only find Westerners, and these guys, they are apparently coming to seek spirituality, but they don't really connect with gurus who are genuine. They connect with gurus who have powerful organizations, but they have absolutely no understanding of Ashtanga Yoga. The first thing that is required to do Ashtanga Yoga is that you have to be ekaki, alone, and you have to be in a secluded place, you have to be in a clean place. Anybody who is teaching Ashtanga Yoga today has neither of these three things to fulfill. And what to speak of freedom from desire and possessiveness. सब अपना बड़ा institution बना के रखते हैं, and there is no question of freedom, desire from possessiveness basically. And therefore today if you go to any holy place, this is the scene. This is Banke Bihari in Vrindavan, and outside Banke Bihari this is the scene. चाट. लोग अभी बांके बिहारी के लिए कम जाते हैं, चाट के लिए ज्यादा जाते हैं. तो most people, if you ask them, बांके बिहारी कैसा था? चाट बहुत अच्छा था. So essentially, now any place which is holy has become unclean. And therefore, where will you practice Ashtanga Yoga, even if you want to practice? The next requirement for practicing Ashtanga Yoga is preparation for a seat. Means how you sit. That is also important. The seat has to be neither too high nor too low. So why is there a discussion about seats? The reason is because when the yogis would perform their sadhana, they would be sitting on tiger skin or deer skin generally. And the reason they would be sitting on these skins is because these skins would repel insects, would repel snakes, reptiles, etc. So it was like a automatic security for them from these insects and stuff like that. Today, when you practice Ashtanga Yoga, if you try to sit on a deer skin or tiger skin, police will catch you, first of all. With tiger skin मतलब हो गया. वो जो example पे दे रहे हैं वो तो. So essentially, the whole concept is deer skin किधर से लाएगा? बैठना है तू भी, है कि नहीं? So you have to now have manufactured deer skin. वो भी duplicate है. So duplicate को तो insect recognize नहीं करेगा, snake recognize नहीं करने वाला, काट के चला जाएगा. बोलेगा मैं तो टाइगर स्किन में बैठा था, वो बोलेगा डुप्लीकेट था, काट के गया मुझे, है कि नहीं? So essentially today what we need, what the yogis would need, freedom from insects and reptiles and all that. Today anybody who practices Ashtang yoga needs freedom from thieves, from dacoits, from envious people. In Rishikesh when I was traveling, I heard of one yogi, and this yogi became very famous. He was a very intensely famous yogi. I'll not tell you all his name. Very famous. And this person was performing yoga in one of the caves in Rishikesh. People used to worship him like anything, and he had a big fan following. Somebody became envious of him, and somebody wanted his cave. Can you imagine? Somebody wanted his cave. They shot him and killed him. Can you imagine what kind of mindset this is? Cave में क्या रखा है? Name, fame, prestige, position में क्या रखा है? खून खराब हो उसके लिए. So the thing is, today tiger skin and deer skin is not enough to help you. What जो snakes है, reptiles है, उससे तो छुटकारा मिल जाएगा. आदमी से कैसे मिलेगा? So even if you practice Ashtanga yoga today, and if you become really a very stable Ashtanga yogi, very famous stable Ashtanga yogi, there are people who have problem with that also. So you can't sit in a secluded place. If you sit in a secluded place and that secluded place becomes famous, people will say, मेरे को वो place चाहिए, तुम निकल जाओ उधर से. So people can go to any extent. That is the craziness of the world today. But look at our state. Forget speaking of sitting on, tiger skin and deer skin. After sitting on a chair also we can't focus. Of course, एक जमाना था, there was a time when I used to give classes, Gita classes like this. Every week, one person sitting on a chair would fall down. Every week, एक. So for me, when I would give class, मैं सोचता था यार आज कौन गिरने वाला है. So today, even if you sit on plastic chairs, there is danger. तो focus कैसा करेगा आदमी? So essentially, the point is that the basic need of Ashtanga yogi is that he should be unaffected by the environment externally. That means the environment in which he is shouldn't bother an Ashtanga yogi at all. And therefore he creates minimal needs so that he can completely focus and absorb himself on higher things. For us, in spite of creating enough external needs, still the ability to focus is not there. Still the ability to be unaffected by externals is not there. And therefore, it is very difficult for people of this mindset. If after having an AC room, after sitting on chairs that don't break, and if after, assurance that after 1 hour lecture there will be prasad, still mind is not able to focus. So then how will the mind focus when you are sitting in a forest? There is no assurance of next meal, no assurance of which insect will come again, which snake will come to bite you, no assurance of any safety whatsoever. What is our ability to focus? Tell me. And therefore, today, what is the meaning of insects and reptiles coming and biting us? Reptiles and insects indicate envy. And therefore, how do you deal with people who approach you with envy? So the yogis had a very simple formula. The simple formula that the yogis had was they would sit on deer skin and tiger skin. So for us who are surrounded by people who are envious, worse than snakes and reptiles, how do you deal with them? What is our deer skin and tiger skin? Essentially, the deer skin and tiger skin is the concept of appreciation. That means The antidote for envy is appreciation. So when somebody is envious of you, if we start appreciating that person only, envy disappears actually. So most of the times when somebody is envious of us, the greatest difficulty we have is the ability to appreciate that person. And therefore, we tend to stay either away from that person, we stay very far from that person, or we tend to criticize the person if we are close. So essentially, the more we criticize an envious person, the envy will only increase. And the more you stay away from an envious person also, it's not that the envy is going to decrease. You can't avoid totally. Therefore, the best way to deal with envious people is appreciate them. Because in front of appreciation, envy doesn't work. So people who are envious, when they are faced with appreciation, they get insecure. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it. Because it's something that it's not in their system. It's something that they are not really used to, And then at some point, the envy disappears. Envy melts away. The next need of somebody who is trying to practice Ashtang yoga is the preparation of the body now. So we spoke about finding the right place. Then we spoke about the seat, the seating arrangement. And then now, the preparation of the body. So the first thing that is needed is we need to sit in an erect posture. Now just look at how you all are sitting right now, Thoda sa casual hai कि Can you imagine 100 साल तक ऐसा बैठना है सीधा? How is it possible? Most people today, they have B3, B12, D3 deficiencies. बोलेगा उसको अष्टांग योग करो, बोलेगा मेरा पीठ टूट जाएगा, कमर टूट जाएगा, पैर टूट जाएगा, हाथ टूट जाएगा. We are practically all China make. Literally all China make. That means fragile. Handle with care. So every human being today literally is so fragile and so so delicate. How are we supposed to do Ashtanga yoga? Sitting in one place and erect back for so many hours. संभव ही नहीं है. So essentially, today, how do people focus? Like one of our devotees was going to to give Gita classes to one family. Filthy rich people. So the whole family comes to attend Gita classes. And the class starts at 9 o'clock in the night. 9 o'clock, Jaira Namaz starts. 9:30 like that. And it goes on till 11, 12, 1 sometimes. And how these people hear the family members? सब लोग अब एक बेड पे ऐसा लेटे हुए हैं. एक प्रभु जी बैठ के लेक्चर दे रहे हैं. एक ऐसा लेटा हुआ है, एक ऐसा लेटा हुआ है. ऐसे लेट के सुन रहे हैं सब लेक्चर. You ask them, why are you sleeping like this and hearing? This is how you can focus. Most students, if you go and observe their studying habits, they can't study on the table and chair. They have to sleep on bed only and study. No. Why? That's how focus happens nowadays. तो अपना focus कैसा? लेटे हुए. So erect है, head, neck, back सब erect है, लेकिन पलंग पे. फिर ऐसा बैठो बोलेंगे, you sit and keep it erect, no, not possible. Head, neck and back erect, sitting not possible. Sleeping possible. So essentially, can you imagine, So fortunately, so far, nobody has asked me this question. लेट के जपा कर सकते हैं क्या? But I am prepared for it. एक कलियुग है, अभी हो सकता है, कभी भी आ सकता है. Next, in few years, somebody will ask me that question also, and I will say yes, do it. At least do somehow, Sitting, sleeping, standing, dancing, कुछ भी करो लेकिन करो बस. Because for Kali Yuga people, you have to be compassionate. Because if you show even little regulation, they will use that regulation as an excuse not to do. संभव ही नहीं है बैठ के करना. सो के कर सकता हूँ, but ठीक है, सो के करो, प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. So if you tell such people who are in such a situation to sit with the erect back and do Ashtanga yoga, what is the possibility? The next one is even more difficult. The condition for practicing Ashtanga, the next condition is that ऐसे ही करना पड़ता है. So that means when a person is sitting with the erect back, erect posture, the eyes have to be neither closed nor open. And the eyes have to both be focused on the tip of the nose. That is the condition. The next condition. Now, if you close your eyes, you will go to sleep. If you open your eyes, you will see everything else. Abhi panchi aaya, abhi udhar kabutar aaya, abhi udhar gaya, so abhi bandar aaya. So mind will be constantly looking at so many other things. Therefore, the Ashtanga yogi has to keep eyes neither open nor closed. Sona bhi nahi, jagna bhi nahi pura. So, and the eyes will be focused on the tip of the nose. Can you imagine? What is the possibility of us doing it? I know a boy who was trying to practice Ashtanga yoga. He was taking guidance under some teacher. Somehow he forced himself too much. He kind of pushed himself too much. And because of that kind of pushing and too much trying to artificially focus, somehow his energies, chakras got activated. And the lower energies got activated very strongly to such an extent that this fellow started hallucinating. So this guy had gone to another country and he started getting crazy hallucinations. He would see a cat walking on the road and suddenly the cat would become a snake. So he started seeing all weird kind of things, hallucinating while awake and moving around, This fellow went and asked his teacher, what's going on? So he said, I don't know, you have gone mad. Then that fellow went for psychiatric treatment, heavy and drugs, come out to pull him out of, the negative vibrations. Sometimes, in today's day and age, if you don't have the right kind of guidance, and if you try to push yourself beyond a certain limit, then things go exactly opposite. Therefore, one has to be very careful of practicing the process of Ashtanga yoga. Then the next step is the preparation of the mind. So we spoke about preparation of the body so far. Now there is a preparation of the mind. So the mind has to be prashanta. So that means the condition with which we are supposed to practice Ashtanga yoga is with a prashanta manasa, with a peaceful mind. But unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, our mind is ashanta, completely disturbed. Prashant mind किधर से आएगा? सब अशांति है. Everybody is so disturbed in life. I saw one fellow wearing a t-shirt. Don't disturb. And below that said, already disturbed. Everybody in Kali Yuga is like that, You don't have to disturb them because itne disturbed hai already. And therefore, for the mind to be peaceful, so for chanting Hare Krishna, your mind need not be peaceful. Chanting will make the mind peaceful. But for practicing Ashtanga yoga, your mind has to be first peaceful. And then you start practicing Ashtanga yoga. The prerequisite to practice Ashtanga yoga is a peaceful mind. जिसका मन अशांत है, वो कैसे मन को प्रशांत करेगा? Very difficult. And therefore, today, where is the possibility of having a peaceful mind? Recently, one family came and met me. Both of them having intense differences. And the wife's biggest difference, biggest problem, रात को पूरा snoring करता रहता है. All night he is snoring. So that means in Kali Yuga, you don't need a reason to be disturbed. Practically every reason is enough to disturb your mind even more and more. Therefore, we are always looking for reasons how one can be disturbed. So, practically every aspect of life, there are enough reasons to be disturbed. Maid doesn't come, क्या disturbance है? पूरा घर रुक जाता है. Whole house comes to a standstill. One maid doesn't come. So one lady can potentially disturb the whole house. Literally, मतलब उसने छुट्टी मारा, घर disturbed है. बॉस ने कुछ बोल दिया, गुस्सा इधर आके घर वालों के ऊपर निकालो. So essentially, practically in Kali Yuga, people are constantly disturbed. ट्रैफिक सिग्नल में प्रॉब्लम, उधर किसी ने ठोक दिया, सब गाड़ी, इतने सारे गाड़ी खड़े हो, everybody is disturbed. So therefore, so many people think that only in Grahastha ashram there is problems and there is disturbance. I am going to show you a live demonstration of how Brahmacharya ashram was equally disturbed. This is a notice that was put on the Brahmacharya ashram notice board. अब पढ़ के देखो कैसा मजा आएगा आपको. The only good thing is that Brahmacharis tend to be poetic about the disturbance. When they talk about the disturbance, अच्छा पोएट्री में डिस्टर्बेंस के बारे में बताते हैं लोगों को. Cultured, scholarly way of presenting, telling that I am disturbed. So this is a notice that is put early morning in the Brahmacharya ashram. Yet again, previous requests, no gain. Please understand our pain. Brahmacharis were suddenly, simultaneously and forcibly dragged out of their mosquito nets due to loud ringing of mobile phone at 3 a.m. in the temple hall. Please understand our pain. भाई एक प्रभु जी ने लगाया नोटिस, उसके बाद उधर देखो 4+1+1+1 इतने लोगों ने अप्रूव किया, मेरे को भी हो गया ऐसा. So can you imagine, अभी गृहस्थ आश्रम में डिस्टर्बेंस तो बहुत है, लेकिन ब्रह्मचर्य आश्रम में कम नहीं है, इधर भी बहुत है डिस्टर्बेंस. That means in Kali Yuga, mind is totally disturbed. ऐसी स्थिति में प्रशांत मनस किधर से आने वाला है? अष्टांग योग प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए फर्स्ट प्री रिक्विजिट इज प्रशांत मनस. नॉट पॉसिबल. Then the next requirement Krishna speaks about is vigata bhir. That means one has to be free from fear. Freedom from fear is a requirement for one to be able to practice Ashtanga Yoga. Unfortunately, for us, what is the cause of fear? Fear is a result of uncertainty in life. Uncertainty in life causes fear. Tell me, who in this world, at least in the city of Bombay, can say that I have no uncertainty in my life? Every person's life is filled with so much uncertainty that there is no chance of not being fearful at all. Literally, every person sitting in this room, I can say what uncertainty you have right now in your life. बताऊंगा नहीं, मालूम है, ऐसा बोल रहा हूँ मैं. So essentially, with so much uncertainty in life, what is the possibility of being free from fear? One time there was an atheist who was being chased by a tiger. Ashtanga Yogi is supposed to be having no fear from wild animals. That is what it means essentially. So if you put it from in our perspective, it's freedom from fear. So one time there was an atheist who was being chased by a tiger, and as he was running, he came to a stage where he was really fearful, and suddenly when the tiger was just going to jump on him, he said, "Oh God!" As soon as he said, "Oh God," everything froze. The river froze, the tiger froze, the breeze froze, everything froze. And then God appeared in front of him, and he said, "You really believe in me?" This fellow said, no, I am still an atheist. Then God said, then why did you call out for me? He said, my dear God, if you have come and if you really exist, make this tiger into a devotee. Then I'll believe that you exist. So then, as soon as he said that, the breeze started, the river started flowing, and the tiger became alive again. Now the tiger is a devotee. So the tiger started chanting, Mahaprasade Govinde, Namo Brahmane Vaishnave, and then ate him up. Devotee tiger है, Mahaprasad prayer बोल के खाया उसको. So essentially, can you imagine if you having so much fear in your heart, what will you do in a jungle? What will you do alone over there? I was once in Badrinath and I saw one yogi, meditating. The only person in like miles and miles together. And this was during freezing winter. Everywhere there was, like snow type. I was wearing like 3 sweaters, and then a shawl on top of it, socks and everything, full gear. This fellow sitting with a small loincloth on his waist. That's it. I couldn't believe my eyes. And it's not that he has any fear about cold, pneumonia ho jayega, TB ho jayega, ye wo. Nothing. Absolutely fearless of the cold, fearless of the conditions in which he is living, fearless of who's going to feed him, fearless of everything. Such a person, if he says, I am practicing Ashtang Yoga, it makes sense. You and me, with so much uncertainty and so much fear in our lives, we say, hum jaake practice karenge, doesn't make any sense at all. The next condition for practicing Ashtanga Yoga is, Krishna talks about Brahmachari Vrate Sthite. That means a person has to practice the concept of Brahmacharya. So now, which means for a person who is a family person, it is not possible only to practice Ashtanga Yoga. It's just not possible, because who's going to follow this? A Vrata. And those who follow this Vrata, why do they follow the Vrata? Many people assume that जिसका सब कुछ फेल हो गया वो ब्रह्मचारी आ जाए, ब्रह्मचारी बन जाता है. Many people have this assumption, that marriage proposals didn't work out. बहुत proposal आए, कुछ हुआ ही नहीं, चलो ज्वाइन कर लेते हैं. हमारा एक ब्रह्मचारी है हमारे आश्रम में. His mother got him 150 marriage proposals. एक भी बराबर नहीं हुआ. Then she said, जाओ भाई आश्रम ज्वाइन करो. He wanted to join, but she was desperately not allowing him to join only. So then, he tried. It's not that he didn't try, but it didn't work out only. Then she realized that his desire is too strong and he's supposed to be here only. Of course, it's not that because that happened he came. Then he will not survive definitely. So it's not that a person joins a Brahmacharya ashram because he's eccentric. Some people believe like that. Every Brahmachari is weird. तभी आते हैं सब. यहाँ पे जितने लोग हैं 150-200 लोग हैं, सब गड़बड़ केस है. कुछ तो गड़बड़ है इसलिए इधर आ जाते हैं. That's not the reason why you become brahmachari. And it's not that अभी रिसेशन का समय है, जॉब नहीं मिल रहा है, चलो आश्रम में आ जाते हैं. 1-2 साल रिसेशन निकलने दो, उसके बाद जाएंगे बाहर वापस. That's not the reason you join brahmachari ashram. That's not the reason you practice brahmachari vrata. So the whole idea is that the concept of preparing the consciousness for meditation. That means one should have the highest and purest level of consciousness to practice Ashtanga Yoga. And then the next stage or the next requirement for practicing Ashtanga, Krishna talks about balance. Yuktara, Vihara. Then there is, so basically Krishna talks about 4 things. Balance in sleep, balance in eating habits, balance in recreation, and balance in work. So for us, our ability to balance is just not there. So what is balance from food point of view? Half stomach full of food, 1/4 water, and 1/4 air. But unfortunately, when we eat, especially if you get something really tasty, पाव भाजी मिल गया, ऐसा दबा के खाते हैं, बाहर निकलने तक खाते हैं. There was one fellow, this Nawabs of Hyderabad. What they used to do, they had a very interesting way of eating. So they would eat so much. They love eating basically. They live to eat. They would eat so much. Once they were full, they would take laxatives and remove everything, and then start eating everything again. वापस second round, अंदर साफ हो गया पूरा. But can you imagine? If that is your desperation to eat, what is the question of balance? Chance ही नहीं है balance करने का. And Ashtang yogi is supposed to be balanced in his sleep. So today when we talk about balancing of sleep, what do we talk about? Sleep for 10 hours, 12 hours. Balance sleep निकालना है. So we accumulate 4 घंटा 3 घंटा सो के accumulate करते हैं और एक दिन सो जाते हैं 12 घंटा continuous. That is our sense of balance. But unfortunately that's not the way it works. The way Ashtang yogi is supposed to balance the sleep is, it's said from the Ayurvedic perspective, the sleep between 9 to 12. So these 3 hours of sleep, each hour of sleep is equal to 2 hours of sleep. Already चालू हो गया 5 मिनट में. 9 o'clock. So 9 to 12, each hour is 2 hours. 12 to 3, each hour is 1 hour. 3 to 6, each hour is half hour. And 6 onwards, no sleep. You are not getting the benefit of sleeping. Today, people sleep at 2. 2 बजे अच्छा नींद आता है. 2 बजे तक पूरा completely, eyes are like open like a, whatever you call it, owl or whatever. Active. रात को active बहुत होता है लोग, है कि नहीं? Yogi is balanced. And a yogi is balanced. So essentially, the concept of balance is for a particular reason. How does that balance come for a yogi? Balance comes when there is right amount of focus on the most important things of life. So the moment your focus tilts, balance tilts. Unfortunately, most people don't focus on the right things. They focus on the wrong things. Television serials. ये serial छोड़ ही नहीं सकता हूँ. नींद छोड़ सकता हूँ. वो serial नहीं छोड़ सकता. So if that is your focus, then how is the possibility of getting sleep? So each one of us, we have to really meditate. What is our focus? So the understanding is, balance tilts when the focus on the most important part of life tilts. For an Ashtang yogi, his morning time is most important. So he is ready to do any sacrifice on the night to make sure that he gets up in the morning on time. And therefore, we have to start asking ourselves, are we really focusing on the most important aspect of life, which is supposed to be chanting of the holy names of the Lord? So if you are focusing on the most important aspects of life, then you will find that in the night, the focus on many things is reducing, it decreases. And your focus in the morning part of life increases. But if you have too much focus on the night aspect of life, there's no question of being able to chant properly in the morning. Absolutely no question, even if the desire is there. People will say, Prabhu ji, desire बहुत है जप करने को. कितने बजे उठते हो? 9 बजे. कोई क्या जप करने के लिए रह गया है? 9 बजे के बाद क्या रह गया जप करने के लिए? सो ही जाओ. Better to sleep only all day. So there's nothing left, basically. So the moment you ask, so first question that somebody should be asked, you say, I'm very serious about spiritual life. What time you get up? उससे समझ में आ जाता है. दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी. वो 8 बजे बोलता है, 9 बजे बोलता है, 10 बजे बोलता है, 12 बजे बोलता है, हो गया उसका. Ashtang yogi is, at least Ashtang yogi is very clear about his balance. So essentially, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he explains that a yogi's recreation is walking. So it's not that yogis don't have recreation, but they have a different type of recreation. And Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, he talks about that a yogi should restrict his speaking. That means by controlling speech, how much one speaks, he retains a lot of balance in his life. Today, people love to speak, and they can speak all day long without any meaning. So can you imagine, we can speak all day long without conveying a single meaningful thing. A yogi is very restricted in what he speaks. So essentially, this is what balance means. So when in the villages, women would take pots, they know how much to fill the pot. So the art is not in carrying many pots. The art is in knowing how much to fill which pot. So when they would, generally what happens is they stack pots on top of each other. The biggest pot is below, little smaller on top, like that, it decreases like that. So there is a way in which the pots are filled. Not all pots are filled to the brim. If you don't know that art, water is going to spill and the pots are going to break. That's how yogi's life is. Very balanced. Because he knows the art of yuktahara viharascha. And the result of such a fixed and balanced life is focus. The result of all this that we have just spoken about, that Ashtang yogi has to do, is focus. That means the result for such a yogi is that the mind is focused like a flame in a windless place. Flame in a windless place, a flame can just stand erect, completely steady. So such a mind, when it becomes very steady, it can meditate on the soul, on the Atma within. That is the concept of self-realization. So what is the meaning of winds in life? All of us have too many winds in life. Pains of not getting what we desire, insults, criticism, crisis. Mind is constantly disturbed. And therefore, with all these winds, the flame of our consciousness is just unable to focus on the higher aspect of life. So we tend to move towards the bodily concept only. So at this stage, the yogi meditates on the self first. And after that, the next stage is that the yogi starts meditating on the super soul within his heart. So essentially, the key point for a yogi is to meditate intensely on the Paramatma within the heart. But for him to be able to reach that stage, then he has to go through all these stages that we spoke about. This is what Ashtanga Yoga is in essence. Rules and regulations, following the favorable things we do, anukulyasya sankalpa, and pratikulyasya virjanam, that means the unfavorable things we reject. And then the Ashtanga Yogi has to do all these things in order to be able to focus his mind on the super soul within. He has to prepare the place. In preparation of the place, we find that he has to find a secluded place. He has to find a clean place. He has to find a place that is, away from all the hustle bustle of the world. And then he has to have a seat which is neither too high nor too low, and the deer skin or tiger skin, whatever, anything that prevents you from all these negativity, the reptiles and insects and all. Then he has to prepare the body, sit erect, and then he starts, his eyes has to be neither closed nor open, focus on the tip of the nose. And then he has to start preparing his mind, and then he has to prepare his consciousness for going higher. And he has to balance all aspects of life, sleeping, eating, recreation, etc. And then when he does all that, the result is that he develops the ability to meditate on the self. His mind becomes like a flame that doesn't waver, because there are no winds of so many things that keep shaking the mind. And then when he does that, then he goes to the next stage, which is meditation on the super soul, which is the goal of yoga. Now, the process of Ashtanga Yoga is so complicated. To be able to reach the last stage, which is meditation on the super soul, you have to pass through the first few stages, all the stages. But when you are practicing the process of Bhakti Yoga, the process of chanting, straight away you go to the last part. Siddha meditation on the super soul. The process of chanting, the moment you start chanting the names of Krishna, immediately the process of meditation begins. And the mind is dragged. Prabhupada would say that the mind is controlled by two sense organs, the ears and the mouth. So between the ears and the mouth, the mind gets trapped. So what we need to do is we need to just hear the holy name. Constantly hear the holy name. That's it. Nothing else. And by slowly hearing the holy name, the mind starts developing focus, developing the ability to focus. And that's what Ashtang yogi is supposed to do. But fortunately for us as bhakti yogis, we can do that without going through all the complexities of what Ashtang yoga is in a very simple way. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.